A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional.
All right, let's do some intentions. I will read them. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Thanks for everything, longtime fan. We'll get right into it here. My boyfriend, 34 male, and I, 30 female, have been dating for about 2.5 years now. We just moved in together about 3 months ago, and things have been going really well in our relationship. We have discussed getting engaged and having a future together, which is all great. Prior to moving in, my boyfriend was insistent on the idea of living together for at least 1 year before getting engaged. I, on the other hand, moved to a different city to move in with him and really felt like I wanted to be engaged prior to moving in or shortly after. We talked things through and agreed that we would get engaged within a year and that if it doesn't happen by then, I'd be moving out and moving on. Sounds a little harsh, but I'm ready for the next chapter and felt like it was better to be honest about what I want. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Now that we're here, I'm really struggling with feelings of jealousy and comparison, especially since multiple close friends and family recently have gotten engaged or married. I have 2 close cousins who recently got engaged, as well as a close friend, and I struggle to be graceful about family and friend pressure. I get many comments from family such as, "We're not getting any younger," and "We'd like to plan a wedding already," etc., just to hash out a few. When people make comments to us or to me, I usually just say, "Talk to him," or, "Well, he's the holdup, not me."
Oof.
But I know that it's deflecting the pressures I feel onto him and that we both need to be ready in order to take this next step. Other than external pressures, our relationship is great. We are on a great trajectory, and he has been reassuring that things will happen in the timing we discussed. I would be grateful for an intention or any advice you may have for me at this moment to get me through these comments and navigating the next few months of celebrations and watching others have something I want. Whether this ends well or not, I'm having so many anxieties along the way. Thank you. Sincerely, a jealous Betch.
This is the ultimate question. I see this all the time. I can't tell you the number of couples I have that are in this little space where like they know there's supposed to be an engagement, but it's not coming at the right speed. And this is a public service announcement. Chill out.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I agree. I was this person, so I've had that moment of being that person. So I understand the chill out comment, and I agree with it. Here's the thing, and I remember I have like a visual of me sitting in my therapist's office, basically having this exact same conversation. And another thing is, men hate when this is like the reason that you want to speed things up. They hate when it's like other people who have been dating less than us, or they hate the comparison as the reason, which I understand to an extent. And I remember talking to my therapist about this, and he was saying that like, although a lot of men can't relate to those feelings. Most men's family aren't like, when's it happening? Or their friends getting engaged does not affect their timeline. They don't really care. But just because something doesn't bother one person, it doesn't mean you can't be sympathetic to another person's world and life experiences.
Right.
So I think that like to dismiss that is, and I think a lot of men do, where they're like, why do you care what everyone else is doing? What does it matter what everyone else is doing? But it's like, that's part of the society that we live in. And I think it's like, it's valid and it's okay. Doesn't mean he has to change his timeline. Doesn't mean he has to change anything. But I think you should be able to say to your partner, I know that like we're headed that way, but I have to be honest, like when my family says this stuff to me, or when I see other people getting engaged who have been dating less time than us, it makes me a little insecure and I get a little anxious.
That's better than I think ask him or like,
right.
Those kind of, I think it is good to share it because I'm sure it's taking up a lot of space in her head. Sounds like they had this conversation already and he was kind of like, we're going to give it a year.
Right.
I love that. And I love, you said it sounds harsh. I love that you gave yourself your deadline, that you know that you're not going to get sucked back in or that you're not going to wait around forever. But part of the beauty of the deadline is that you now relax into that deadline, because what I've seen happen is, this is why I say PSA, chill out, right? I know obviously it's not that easy, because what I've seen happen is a great relationship that's moving along really well. This type of thing happens. And then, like you said, maybe her not sharing her feelings in a healthy way. combined with just this general pressure cooker of when is this engagement happening, ends up making him have second thoughts. Like all we do is talk about get this thing, or like it seems like we don't even have fun anymore. We're just like arguing about who's getting married, and you go to these weddings and you don't have fun at the wedding because she's like feeling sad that someone else got engaged before her. Like all the things that just make the relationship not fun anymore, in a period where, if he's being honest, he is kind of like still evaluating, which is why he wants to live with her for a year to see how that feels. And that's what's making her insecure, is he's kind of like, I want to see what living together for a year feels like before we commit. So she knows she's still in like an evaluation period of sorts, which makes her feel insecure. And then it's like this kind of vicious cycle of she's insecure, so she's not like having fun and they're not enjoying stuff and their relationship is being affected. And then he's like, oh, maybe this isn't fun anymore. So I think that can happen. Most couples, I'll say, that I see, this is just anecdotally, end up working through it. But I've seen so many times where the proposal itself is kind of like, it just feels like pressured, and it's like conflict laden, and it's like she had to know and she kind of squeezed it out of him. And like, I love that you gave yourself a year.
And she was very open about it. It wasn't even like it's her secret deadline.
Give it the whole year. It's only been a few months. Give it the year, because I think if you start allowing your mind to just run crazy and obsessive over this, yes, I agree with you. Share it with him in a way that's like, I'm not asking you to do anything.
Right. And I don't think she should ask him to do it. I don't think he should. I agree with him, or most men, in that the timeline shouldn't be sped up because of someone else's timeline, which is what they hear when they're like, can you believe they've been dating for a year less than us and they're engaged? Like, that's what men hear, is like, I'm not changing, like, you want me to change my plan because of someone else's plan. Which I get is like annoying. And I've spoken to Jared about this even like recently, is like, they hate that. Like, that's like the worst reason you could give for why we need to go faster, because of what other people are doing.
Right. Well, what she feels is, in that moment, her boyfriend loves her more than you love me.
Yes.
That's why they got engaged after a year and a half, and we're not engaged, and it's been 2.5 years, because he loves her more. And that makes me feel bad. So I think what you need to hear is like affirmation in that moment. It's not really about the engagement. You've given yourself a year, which I think is great. And so it's not about the engagement at this point. And then what you don't want is, anytime someone gets engaged or you go to a wedding, it creates tension between the two of you. That's going to make it less fun, less present, less enjoyable. It's going to make him feel like there's a lot of tension in this living space. I would just catch yourself. And I do think this is a type of problem that you can have so many times throughout your life. I will be happy when we get engaged. I will be happy when we have a baby. I will be happy when we buy a house. I will feel safe when this other thing happens. And you can do that forever and ever. So I think part of creating the life that you want is finding peace in the life that you have.
And to bring it back to her anxiety that you said, which I think is accurate, of like, he loves me more, or he doesn't love me as much as this person's fiance loves them because they, got engaged in a year or whatever it is. I think it's easy to like make that conclusion, but really it's like, some people are more like logical, like time-based. I mean, like, and Mike's like that too. He was like, not that he didn't, I don't think it's that he loved me less than someone who's been proposed to a year. Like, maybe he's a little bit less spontaneous and goes by the wears his heart on his sleeve kind of person, which is, again, I don't think that means like love someone more. It's just a different kind of person, not better or worse, that moves a little faster. And so I think when you're drawing the conclusion of like faster equals more in love is not accurate.
Yeah, I do think there are people that kind of like to check the boxes before they move on to the next thing. And living with you for a year is part of what he thinks is important. And maybe someone else doesn't. Everyone comes from their own whole long history of wounds and parental wounds and intergenerational stuff and seeing their parents' marriage and what worked and what didn't. And yeah, the comparisons
takes us back to our first conversation about a reasonable person could get engaged after a year and a half. A reasonable person could get engaged after 3 years. It doesn't mean that one person, like one is right and one is wrong.
So yeah, I just think I've seen this happen so many times where it just makes the period leading up to the engagement full of tension, and it doesn't feel as like peaceful and nice and organic as it could be. He's not lying to you. He moved in with you. That's huge, right? Moved all of his things into a joint space. I think it's heading in that direction. It seems like it's heading in that direction.
Says it's heading in that direction.
Right.
Right.
Relax into it. And whenever people get engaged, just look at it as something kind of like exciting. Like, yeah, you want to talk about it. You want to share it. And you could just say something like, I'm so excited. I hope that that's us one day. Like something nice and light and not like, pressury. But if you do, I agree with you, Jordana. If you do have moments where you're feeling insecure, I think you can express those moments. But I would definitely say, I'm sharing this with you not to make you feel bad, not because I want you to do anything differently. I'm just sharing this with you because it's like a moment that I'm having.
And again, I think he can express sympathy for that without changing his timeline or understanding that you're under different pressures as a woman than he is.
Yes.
Which you are. I think it's like fair.
The intention that I wrote for her is, well, I wrote two, but one that I like because I think it works for many aspects of life. I will manifest what I want by choosing to find peace in this moment, not the next. And I think we get so focused on like, I need the engagement. I need the wedding. I need to move in together. I need the baby. I need the next thing to happen to have peace. And I think you're more likely to create that if you're peaceful with what you currently have. Which I'm sure you guys have you said you have a great relationship. You 3 months into living together, you're nesting and enjoy that. Enjoy the space that you're creating together.
Until the day after your deadline.
Yes.
When it will not be enjoyable anymore.
Yes. Well, that's the beauty. I love the deadline because it just allows you to rest in between. Like even with some people, like you do have a biological clock, and with some women, you kind of make this deadline of like, okay, if I don't meet someone by X age, I'm going to freeze my eggs. And it's like, great, then just relax for that year.
That's the purpose of it. Yeah. Good move on her end. All right, let's do some triggers.
Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. First time writing in. Here's my triggered scenario post-holidays. I have a 10-month-old baby, and this was our first Christmas together. We traveled to Michigan to spend the holiday with my in-laws. While they are very nice, I've noticed my mother-in-law makes passive-aggressive comments and things to me that I can't tell if it's out of lack of awareness or with intent. She was recording a video of my husband playing with the baby, and I walked into the living room to be with them, and she extended her arm to prevent me from joining them and getting in the video.
Wow.
She would also ask me to take pictures of all of them together with the baby and my sister-in-law and never take turns to include me in the photos. How triggered should I be? Am I overanalyzing? I also want to create memories with my new family and with my baby, but these little things make me feel excluded and like I'm not part of the family. I understand I don't need to be in every shot, but it feels like she deliberately wants to portray her family as her 2 adult children and her new grandchild and not me. To add salt to the wound, she took the picture I took of all of them together with the baby and made it her new profile picture on Facebook the next day. The comments said, beautiful family. And I'm like, what about me? Would love to hear your thoughts. A +1 at Christmas, Betch.
Yeah, this is definitely triggering. I think the arm thing is like trigger. All these are like triggering in themselves, but together, I think it's like pretty awkward. It does sound like she doesn't like you. I will be honest. Yeah.
Doesn't like you, or I don't even know if it's personal. I do think, and I would love to hear the backstory of like, the mom and her marriage and their family and what that all looks like, sounds like, because there's something going on where it does sound like these gestures are like, I want to capture my child and his child. Like, this is my grandchild. This is my son's child. This is our family. And you've just kind of like birthed the baby.
Right. Delivered him to us.
Yes. Delivered him to us. So I totally get that this is triggering, especially like wanting that to be a moment, physically putting her arm out to prevent you from getting in the frame. Like, that is.
And then also the thing with the sister-in-law where she like she asked her to take pictures of them, include, because first, if it were me, I'd be like, all right, maybe it is like a nuclear family. This is like me and my children and my grandchild thing. But like, she's having her take pictures of the family with the sister-in-law in it.
Yeah.
Assuming the sister-in-law is the husband's brother's wife, but maybe it's the husband's sister. That's possible. If that's the case, then that goes with your theory. If the sister-in-law is her husband's sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, maybe she's having a hard time. Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. It's like, it just makes me think of like, I don't know, like orangutans in a jungle, just like the matriarch trying to like the old matriarch, like trying to hold her ground. And then there's like a, young mother rising in the ranks and she's like ripping her face off. So it really is this like territorial thing, I think, that can happen. I don't know. I would love to hear more. Do you want to come on the show? I want to know what's going on here.
Yes.
This seems, there's more to this story about why she's feeling so I don't know if there's something, like you said, she doesn't like you. Did something happen? Is there a conflict? Mm-hmm. She probably would have shared that if that was.
Yeah, I would imagine. Please give us a follow-up. I mean, here's another thing that I've thought is like, they don't live in the state, right? They live out of state. And I think sometimes mother-in-laws can blame women for like taking their child away from them, bringing them to a different state. Like maybe they live by her parents and not him.
Right.
And I think sometimes there's like a villainization of the woman who like made their son not move home.
That's quite possible. I definitely think, or there could just be this like territorial thing where she's kind of like, this woman in some way, maybe that's one option, is a threat to me. And I don't want to embrace her as part of this new dynamic, which is really hurtful. And I don't know that it's personal. Like maybe it is, but I think something like what you're saying, where it's not even personal to you, it's just her like not wanting to share, or wanting to almost like, it's kind of sad, but I think like relive her time when she was the mom, which is like the hardest explanation of this, is almost like she wants to be like the mom, just kind of twisted dynamic of like, it's her and her son and her daughter. And she's like reliving her, days of being the number one caretaker. And she has to kind of squeeze you out in order to feel that way, which isn't true. I mean, there's so many beautiful mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationships where they come and they're like helpful and they love you and they are proud of you and they think you're a great mother, but you can share the responsibility. But when I think which is why I'm curious about this mother-in-law, when she's almost like trying to relive her glory days, kind of.
Right. Like, this is me and my family. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. I would also bring it up to your husband just to get like validated. Sometimes that's really all you need. Like sometimes you're like this is almost kind of fun. Like, or I feel kind of bad for her. Or this is kind of like funny that she's like so territorial. But in order to get to that point, you need to be validated by the person in your family, like your husband, who's like, yeah, that's usually all I need is like that was really weird. That wasn't nice. Or something, you know what I mean? Something
and I
like
could
that.
See that being maybe a little hard for him, because we both get it. So I'm glad you came here. But on the surface, it's like, well, she didn't say, oh, you get in the picture and I'll take one. Or she didn't say that. Well, neither did the husband say that. The husband didn't say, you get in. Like, I want to make sure so-and-so has a picture with her in it. So he might not want to say, yeah, that was weird. The arm thing is weird. I think it's because she wanted to like share this video that was like her son and his baby.
Or the passive aggressive comments are weird. Like, I think he should be, I would bring that up with him also, is like, hey, like, love for you to step in here if you feel like, here's how I'm feeling. Right. Because I mean, I would say if I was taking a family picture with my baby and my family and Mike was taking the pictures, I would be like, even if no one else said it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, get in.
All right, someone, get in. Like, we'll set it. Even if you don't want to ask, we'll set a timer.
Right.
Like, I would be like advocating because I would want them in the picture also.
Yes. And so it's important that he knows how you feel. I agree, so that he can help advocate. And then second line of defense, if he can't jump in and start to like lead the charge on this whole, like, we're not going to create this fake image of like that this baby got dropped at the doorstep, then I think you can at some point say, just advocate for yourself and say like, I'd like to get in one, or like, you know, just kind of making her aware that she's doing it, which she literally might not even be aware that she's doing it.
Maybe if she's that obtuse about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Get your husband in. And then at some point you might need to just address this with her, which I know would be really hard, but totally validated. I think it's triggering. I'll give it a 6.
I was going to say a 6 too. I think the cumulative, any one of these on their own, maybe like a 4. I could see why, like, okay, the picture the mom looks best in happens to not be the one you're in. So she puts that as the Facebook profile picture.
Yeah. That's
or, you know, she's asking you to take all the pictures, or just the hand thing. All of these things together, I think, are definitely a 6.
Please, come on. I want to hear what there's something cooking here, I think.
Let's get it. Would love to get into it. All right, let's do one more. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Big fan of the pod, all things Betches, and absolutely love the sister dynamic, having come from a big, loud family myself. I'll get right to it. We just got married and my best friend didn't get us a wedding gift, and I can't stop thinking about it. This friend is really close to both of us. She sat at our table at the wedding. She got ready with me morning of. She's basically our third wheel, and her parents even sent a gift. Every day, it's been about a month since the wedding, I try to come up with another reason she didn't send one. Maybe it's lost in the mail. I paid for her makeup, but not her hair. The wedding was outside the city, so maybe she figured staying in a hotel was costly enough, etc., etc. I'm really trying not to be triggered and really trying to see it from all angles, because at the end of the day, it feels shallow to be upset for not getting a gift, but I just can't shake the principle of it all. My husband and I give really generous wedding gifts to our closest friends, and this won't change that when it's her turn, but it just feels off. I know from past weddings that she doesn't give the most generous gifts, so I wasn't expecting much, but no gift feels really weird. I've asked a few of our closest friends if I should ask her about it, but we can't figure out where to land. Any advice would be appreciated. Sincerely, this doesn't make sense, Betch.
I don't know. I think it depends on if it's bothering you to the point where it's affecting your relationship, like where it sounds like it is, where you can't really move on, or it's like affecting the time that you spend together. I think you can phrase it as like, hey, this is really awkward, but I never got a wedding gift. I want to just make sure that you didn't send something and it never got to me. Acknowledging the awkwardness of the conversation and phrasing it as like, I want to make sure that I didn't miss something.
I would just take the loss. I don't think I could do that. Because like, I could see if she said she doesn't give the most generous gifts. So I could see where she's like, I paid to get my hair done. I got a hotel. I did all the bridesmaid duties, and that's my gift. And like, I think we always suggest against that, just to give something small, almost to avoid this situation.
Even if it was just a photo frame, like a little something, I don't think you need to spend money on a gift. Or even honestly, a card where it's like, this is the thing that I'm presenting you for your wedding.
But here's also the other thing. She said they just got married. You technically have a year. So it could be she forgot the card. She's going to mail it. Some people are not like super on top of those things. Like the actual etiquette rule, I think, is that you do have a year.
And maybe because you're so close, she's like thinking, oh, this isn't like a big deal.
I'll give it to you the next time I see you. I think we got gifts like 6 months after our wedding.
I take that back. I don't think at this point, 3 months later, I think I would give it some time. And I honestly, it didn't get lost in the mail. I want to change my initial thing. I don't think she should. I agree. It hasn't been enough time. It didn't get lost in the mail. She probably either forgot or didn't, like you said, doesn't plan on doing anything. And either way, that's part of her package.
She came, she got the hotel room. Maybe that was all would you rather her not do that and send you a gift and not come? Like maybe that was all she could afford. Again, I don't agree with I think you should give something to just show that you are happy for someone as a gift.
Right.
I wouldn't say anything. I just think there's no ending that I think would make you feel, I guess the only end, there's no ending to that conversation. I think that would make you feel great because it's either like, oh yeah, I have the card here, I haven't mailed it. And then you feel like an asshole for like following up on your gifts and like counting your gifts.
Yes.
Or she's like, oh, I didn't think I was supposed to get a gift because I paid for a hotel and came in. I didn't realize
it's like awkward
that.
Anyway.
So I don't see like a response to that that's going to make you feel that much better. I think write it off as a loss.
Yeah, this is not a part of her as a friend that is like your favorite part of her as a friend. Like it's something that she's doing that you wouldn't do. And sometimes it is hard. We talk about like moral stuff with friends, like political differences and morality differences. When you're friends with someone, you're like, I would never do that. It almost feels like it makes my skin crawl to be close to someone when they do something that I would never do. But like maybe it's a good life lesson for you to be like, okay, I can still be friends with this person, even though I think her gift giving etiquette is horrific and embarrassing. And I would never act that way. But like overall, she's a good friend. Yeah. It sounds like she came, she did all
got ready
duties.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah. She did all the things she was supposed to do. I get it. I think the whole idea of a wedding gift is like, this is a big moment in your life. And like, I want to acknowledge that and connect with you on it. Which is why a beautifully written card would be a great thing if she feels like she can't afford more than the hair and the dress. And yeah, being in someone's wedding is expensive. I don't know what else you guys did, but like, I get it. If you can't give hundreds of dollars on top of that, I do understand that. But I think just some acknowledgement is great. But look, she has a different ethical code in terms of gift giving. Is it a friendship deal breaker? I don't think so. So I really don't think it's worth even going there.
And she says, I've been thinking about it every day since the wedding.
Yeah.
That's a little much. Like,
yeah.
I think you've got to let it, I think you've got to call it a no. If it shows up, again, she does technically have a year. If it shows up, that's great. I wouldn't expect it. And like, it doesn't seem like it's about the money. So just like put it in her file and move on. I'd give it a 5 though. That's like, I could see it being like, would she really not get, like, I could see just like the thinking about it as like almost like a mystery that you can't let go of. Is almost more than so like upsetting.
A puzzle you can't solve. And you're like, I just need to know the answer to this puzzle. I agree. I do think it's triggering. Your, best friend, you guys are like 3 peas in a pod, like doing everything. And I think it's more about the acknowledgement of the wedding, but I guess her presence was her acknowledgement. But yeah, I agree. Your best friend not giving you a wedding gift. I agree. I'll give it a 5.
All right. Well, we did it. This was fun. Happy almost Valentine's Day to all of you.
All right. That's our time.